I'm very good at organizing. I'm very good with logistics. I'm very good at telling people what to do. I can do it. And I didn't want to act, but she went on, and for some reason, all the different people we got to play that part couldn't play the part. So I ended up playing the part. But the part of it, and I'm glad that Violated has become the phenomena that it did. But the funny thing is that the part of it that I loved in Violated was the producing, not acting as Peggy. It was the producing. It was my first job. They took a huge risk with me, but they also knew that I had good contacts. I used my network. It was still very new for a lot of people, so they were really intrigued when I said, look, I'm doing this film, and I want you to give me your premises free, and I'm going to be shooting in it for 2 weeks. And people would literally just hang out and watch us and be like, wow, wow. So I was able to do quite a lot. And that first premiere, seeing the film or preparing to see the film for the first time on the screen, that was scary. Just how it would be perceived, how it would be received, and if we were going to make any money. Well, that's still a very reoccurring, fear. Every time I make another one, it's like, are we going to make any money? Oh, please come to the cinema. So please come to the cinema, watch our films. It's still a fear, and you keep doing it afraid. But I think that was my first, sort of experience professionally about a real fear about if you would succeed and if this risk was going to be worth it. Yeah.
Did you have any fears about transitioning from, like you said, behind and controlling everything to, like the first time you acted?
Yes.
Did you have any fear acting?
No, I didn't. I mean, considering, as I said, I wasn't really big on acting. I wasn't big on acting in front of people on stage. I did a few because school, you had to. But I was acting all the time in real life. I'm a bit of a performer. So standing up, when they now said, you have to do it, there's nobody else going to do it, Ego, you have to do it. It's like riding a bike. Once you know how to do it, you just get back on and do it. I mean, I went back and acted after not acting professionally in 20 odd years. And before I got on set, I was like, oh God, what if I can't remember my lines? What if, But when I stood there and the cameras, started rolling and the director said action, it was like riding a bike. It all came back. It flowed. So that wasn't the fearful part, is the producing and being responsible for how this happened. Is it a success? Acting, you do the work and then you sort of walk away, and there's a responsibility in terms of the success, but you still hand that over to somebody else. So it was the producing that was more of a difficult thing for me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, Neri. Please. The thing about Neri is that she's in mining. She's a woman in mining in Nigeria. And as if that's not even scary enough just thinking about it, she has a story of how she got there. Before this, we chatted a little bit to try to get, how did you even decide that you were going to go into that? So can you give us kind of like a brief of that, and then touch on this do it afraid theme that we're all talking about?
Well, to try and summarize, my father was an entrepreneur. And I remember that life growing up. I remember we'd pray for everything. We prayed for school fees. We prayed for everything. And I remember then, there was a point in time in my life as a teenager, I said, I don't know about all this nonsense. I will go, I'll have a great job, I'll get paid a lot of money, and I won't have to be praying about school fees and these things. I distinctly remember that, and it was one of the reasons why I made up my mind that the whole entrepreneurial thing, not interested. So anyway, I will go to school, excuse me, I'll go to school, I'll get a good degree. I was an electrical and computer engineer. Somewhere along the line, within the first year of working, is that true? Yes, after grad school, I just started feeling like I'm dreaming with God. I remember saying that I will be having dreams, and they were like previews. And I remember thinking, I feel like I'm dreaming with God. Anyway, long story short, I will see a book called Dreaming with God, and I will scream. And I read the book, and I had this moment with God, and I was daring him. I said, God, I feel like you're calling me to be an entrepreneur. And I said, I never planned this. I said I would never do this. I watched my father live this life. I know what that life is like behind the scenes. I'm not interested. But there was enough of fear of God in me to say, God, but if this is you, it was like a dare. I said, God, I have just bought a house in the US. I've put 20% down. I have also just got my work visa. Remember, I just come out of school. I don't know how this is going to go, but if you sort this out somehow, then I'll think of going to be an entrepreneur. And I distinctly feel like I heard in my spirit, okay. I just thought, not really. Within 9 months, my house was paid off, and I got my green card. And you have to understand, I hadn't even gone for an interview to get my green card. I was waitlisted. I wouldn't have had an interview date for at least a year. They mailed me a green card. The picture on that green card was from my student visa days. I mean, talk about the fear of God. I was looking. And then my company that I used to work for, they went public. We were a semiconductor company. And because I'm an international student who was hustling, looking to get this great job, they didn't really want to pay me much. So they gave me a lot of restricted stocks. But they went public, quadrupled the stock. All this money came. And I sat and I was looking. And I distinctly just sat there. I was afraid. I was afraid. And I heard God say to me, so Nere, what else? And I remember, for me, I just said, God is my comfort. So I paid off my house. The hustle that everybody is hustling to leave Nigeria that I did, I went all the way there, and I came back without really staying. So I came back. So yes, do it afraid. That's part of the story. But what happened, to cut a long story short, there's been many phases of this story, because mining wasn't the first thing, is just the conversation I had with God through that process. Well, what are you afraid of? I was afraid of failure. I was afraid of losing. I was afraid of looking foolish. And you know what? I like the way God does it, and I'll tell everyone. All of that is real. It doesn't matter. I failed. I've learned. And I keep going. What's the big deal with failing? It's not a big deal. We make a bigger deal of it than it is. Losing. Yeah, I've lost things, but I've gained a lot more than I've lost. So what's the big deal? And looking foolish, oh, that's standard. So, I mean, who cares? And the truth is, when I face the fact that you will keep facing those fears and there's life beyond it, actually, I found out that I'm braver, realizing that you'll face it. So, that's my story.
Thank you. Yes, Landway, the magician who started making millions of dollars in 2 years. Research says that you started several other businesses and that they all failed before you did this one. Tell us about that briefly and how you then decided that this was going to be the one that was going to change everything.
All right. So I'm very comfortable listening to everybody. So my heart was doing big. So, but I hope that you get something out of my own, my session. Well, I'm from Abeokuta, and I started my life there. I was born and brought up there in Abeokuta. My parents, my mom, businesswoman, my dad, engineer, and we're 8 in number. And I was number 6. So the first got into school, came back after NYSC, no job. Second, no job. Third, no job. And I started asking myself that, well, my dad wanted me to go to science class, and I did. But all this no job, is this how I was going to end up? But one thing I know about myself is that I like every good thing of life. I like. Money is good. I like every good thing. That's why I married a very good wife. So, but I like this. I like to have my own thing. One of the things that motivated me into starting business then was I wanted my own car. And I started my business at 17 during ASU strike. It was a very good one that I got used to ASU strike, that anytime they are saying, there will be strike, I'm already back in my house. I so enjoyed ASU strike. And I started different businesses. And I can remember that my parents would call me and tell me, wait, come, why the rush? You are just still in school. Why? Okay, what do you really want to? Why are you rushing? Why are you doing everything? And every morning I will wake up. My uncle gave me a yellow suit, and I'll put on the yellow. No, that's not a suit, coat. So I'll put it on, and then I'll go out. I had this thing I was marketing then to put people's adverts, their different businesses, and I'll hear no. You've not done anyone before. And my brothers will laugh at me that young CEO, you are going out again. You know, meaning that come with money. And when I'm coming back in the night, you know, they all laugh at me and say, mommy, your son is around, young CEO. They still call me CEO, but with the difference now. So I started different businesses I'm a very restless person. And I failed my WAEC about 4 times. And by the second fail, I started a coaching center. So I started a coaching center, and I will stand by all these public secondary schools and tell them that, you know what, my coaching center can give you 7 A's and all that. And I didn't have one single A myself. So, and I would talk to teachers to come to my coaching center. I would pay them, and and sometimes teachers would disappoint, and I would carry a Babio and start studying. I'll say, okay, assignments. Today is assignments. That scope. So I started coaching center. It failed. We couldn't pay for the venue. Different things like that. Major failures after failures after failures after failure. But the thing is that mistakes will increase your experience. Experience will reduce your mistakes.
Please, can we just take a moment for offering baskets? Mistakes
will increase your experience
and experience will reduce your mistakes.
So I started doing stuff. Then at a point, I said, I read a book called Wealth in Your Gift. And I listed out all the skills that I know that, okay, I've seen, and I started asking people that, what do you think my gift is? Back in secondary school, I was a chronic stammerer. Maybe you hardly notice now, except maybe when I'm angry and I won't talk. But I was a chronic stammerer that before I could, guys would be gisting, and when it's my turn, they wait for me, and they'll just pass it down. My stammering was so much that I would have to do like this before I can talk. And, they call me all kinds of names. I had that finishing secondary school, and then I started a music group.
Were you a rapper? Or a producer?
All different things, anyway. And then we call it a vineyard gospel group. Then we go to banks, sing for them during break. They will pay us. We'll have a bowl and funny things, anyway. So, doing all kinds of business. And every time, my mom would just look at me and observe that, and every time my own prayer time is always longer. They'll call everybody during prayer time. But my own time, and I was a subject of discussion every time. Started different, and in 2010, I sold the Father Rice at the Experience concert. By 2 a.m., I was lying down flat inside one gutter. I was crying. I lost everything. And everybody became my business consultant. Oh, Bati Sheba, you should have done it like this. You should have done it like this. And that's one thing about life. When you fail, everybody will comment. And it's easy. People celebrate that. And I can remember that my dad wrote me a letter. We stay in the same house, and the guy had to put pen to paper. Word me. And, all kind of things that, and it's normal for him to feel like that because I was just this restless boy and all that. He said all kinds of things in that letter. And 2 years ago, I think I bought him a car, a Jeep, and he sent me a text that I've always known. But that is what life is all about. People don't care about your mistakes. What they want to see is result. And result is what is most important. So I felt so much that by the time I finished school, though when I was in school, I had the same size office as my VC. So I had this small hub that I would rent out to fellowships, and I would tell them, before school, your fellowship time should be this time so that Redeem can use it. I was jack of all trades. And by the time I was done with school and it was time for NYSC, then I said, I'm not going. Then everybody, they called uncles, aunties, pastors first. Say, this guy is demonic. So I said I wasn't going, that I'm starting a business, and I started a vocational school right in Abeokuta. And I was training NYSC members and all that. I would go to camp. I was so good that I can sell, maybe you read accounting. I will sell you, because I do certifications. I can sell you a professional certification for engineers. I was that good. That couples will be running from me. My God, by sorrow, that kind of thing. That once that guy talks to you, you are going to drop money. I was that very good. So then I had a vocational center that couples would come and I would train them. I didn't know how to do anything, but I would bring in fashion designers, photographers. I would just organize about 20 different courses. NYSC will pay me, then I will still collect some from the couples. I say, you know what, you need to upgrade advanced class. I was doing all that, and I was struggling to pay rent. The money wasn't enough, then I struggled to I bought one car then that, the car would just decide that today I'm not starting. And, it was so terrible. Then I said to myself that, wait, so then, people started doing the same thing, and then they were doing it for cheaper amount. I don't compromise when it comes to quality. Even in my market now, I don't compromise. Is that you can afford it, or you can't afford it, but I will not drop standard. So I said, look, I'm not doing this thing again. Then I called all my friends back in Abeokuta that, guys, I think this town, there's a demon in this town that is affecting my capacity. At the point, my friend thought maybe there was this, you can feel so much that you feel that maybe your village people are really, you are always the subject matter. So I felt so much that, one day my dad told me, said, today I'll take you to one pastor. And I got to the church, and the man said, we're starting vigils 6 p.m. and you must show up. I'm like, who starts vigil 6 p.m.? Then I was there, maybe they started around 9, and I went there with 4,000, and they collected everything. I said, I will not give money. By the time they started releasing big prayer points, then by the time I got back home, I was like, scam and man, get me. So, I've had different fair share of that I will borrow money for the next idea, I won't be able to pay back, and that's the worst. Because you always borrow for the next idea. I wasn't even buying any clothes, and then people would be like, don't move with Wale because that guy is always in debt and all that. I can remember that I wrote myself a suicide note because I was owing the whole summation of the amount I was owing. So summation of 200,000 naira. And I was thinking of dying. That money cannot even buy my car tire now. I was thinking of dying. Then I said to myself, okay, now I think that I'm going to try a different location. I think the spirit here. But I had two options, either to travel abroad or stay back so I had the option of, let me travel abroad and I'll go and start Wale Obe. Wale Obe, I'll be cooking still. That was the idea on my head. That I'll cook, we do a for today, I'll supply. That was on my head, that I'll relocate abroad. Then I moved to Lagos. When I entered Lagos, it was Mushi. I said, this Mushi, sorry if I'm from Mushi, I like the place, I said, this Mushi people, they are very, Mushi is a place that you say, bros, I'm going to work, please, can I get 200 naira? And the guy will say, 200 naira, 200 naira, 200 naira, 200 naira. Money? I'm like, why are you searching your pockets? You don't really have this money. Then, I'll pass Way Street, all those, I'm like, I don't want to be in this area. I want a place that I can be inspired. And I was volunteering for a company in Lekki Phase 1, Jimmy Waste company. I'll go there. I was doing everything. Today, I'll drive today. Tomorrow, I'll try to sell some of his materials and all that. Then, I don't know how real estate entered my mind. Really. I can't say. But one thing that I had was that there was internet 24/7. I asked myself one single question that, where is everybody's money going? Everybody is making money. Where how are they spending this money? And how can I get my own share? And I started researching about the top 10 industries in Nigeria, oil and gas. I don't know anything about it. But, real estate just entered my mind. I can remember that I trekked from Maryland to Onikpan with one of my friends. And we're talking about this real estate thing. And the guy was telling me that, see, Baba, you have failed so much that if you touch this real estate thing, everybody might have been sorry, but you will fail at it. And I said, well, let me try it. And I started sharing the idea to everybody. Then nobody was ready to invest. Then I started real estate digital marketing. That, well, training, I like it. I can talk, I can, share. Then I started real estate digital marketing. I printed out the first flyer, nobody registered. And after 2 weeks, one guy called me that, I'm interested. I was like, this one guy. I said, well, I will do the training. I will do a private class for you. The guy thought I was doing him a favor. So I went to his office. I gave him a private class. Then the guy not made sale in 2 years. Then the thing worked. And everything I taught this guy, I watched everything on YouTube. Everything. It was just, So I watched everything on YouTube. And I was like, but what you tell YouTube, you tell anything about this thing. So I shared it so much that, the guy was able to make one sale, and then they called me from his company to come and train 4 people again. I trained them. Then the wife of, the owner's wife, you're a young man, and then with this energy and all that, I know somebody that I can introduce you to and all that. He has this pool of agents, if you can only get him to, and I called the man, and, and see, one thing about life is that life will always test your determination. Are you ready for it? When you are so determined and then you put your plans to paper and all that, when you move out in reality, you look at the paper again. Was I mad when I was writing this thing? And when I was going to start real estate, I was sharing the idea with everybody, and there was only one person that said, okay, this idea, I will invest. And then this person was asking for 40% of the company for 5 million. I said, just bring it. And the lady cut me a check, 5 million. And by the time I got to the bank, said, call the owner of the check. And I called. The lady said she had a dream that the idea wouldn't work. So I returned back the check. I was so devastated and all that. And I looked again. Someone said something on this panel that was very profound. That God would always work with what you have. Look within. There is something that you have. And that which you have is enough. And that was the word that was on my mind. And I sat there like, Wally, what do you have? 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 And I asked myself that, what do I have? And the only thing, I hope I'm not wasting time, sorry. Don't worry. They will still ask me question again, so I will continue from there. But let me just round it up, So I asked myself, okay, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? And the only thing was my skill, ability to sell. Let me tell you something. If I jam you, you will buy. No matter the excuse you have, if I jam you, you will buy. And that was the only thing. That was the only thing. And I can remember that I walked up to a guy and I said, you know what, I can help you sell this property. See, the land-based story is a very big story. It's a very, very big story that since I can't share it finish. Don't worry. It will come again. All right?
Wow.
Let me not waste another so that.
All right. I don't want to call you Dubara, as a voiceover artist did. Yeah, actually, Dobra, just to clarify. But you have a fascinating story of being a metalsmith. And I think I've heard part of the story before with Omi's Ghanaian twin from The Richer Woman. And you shared a bit of that. But can you just share with us now and how was there, because this panel just seems to be fearless. I mean, they talk about fear as if it was like, oh, whatever, and then we moved on. So please, do you have any fears? Are you fearless as well?
I had, is this working? Can you hear me? Okay. Is this better? Okay, yeah. So I had a whole lot of fears. Like, even till today. Moving on to the next thing to do is like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Then I remember how far I've come, and it's like, so what's your problem? And then I remind myself that if you never do it, you're never going to get to that place that you're dreaming of getting to, so you might as well just buckle down and get this thing done. But rewind to how Zivanora started. Um, Jewelry for me wasn't one of those things that, okay, when I was growing up, and this was actually even part of the things that I got scared of, like in the process of starting. Because at some point, when I finally decided to get into jewelry, I used to look up other jewelry designers, trying to find out their history and like how they became successful, trying to basically learn from other people. And everybody's story was like, when I was 5, I used to play in my grandmother's jewelry box. You know, everybody had that cutesy, story of going somewhere and all of that. And I looked at myself, I was like, there was grandmother, but there was no jewelry box to be playing inside, and all of that. And then it was like, okay, what will be my story? There was not, all of that. And, at that point, God kind of reminded me that your story doesn't have to be their story. You also don't have to be one of those, my great-grandfather was a goldsmith, that is a family thing. I'm the first person in my family, that is doing something like this. Even though I had grandmother that liked jewelry and gold and all of that, but then actually like doing it, But to kind of go back, so my whole jewelry thing kind of started about 2005. I was in college that time. And then I came home my first summer holiday, and that was when it started. And I came home because at that point, I didn't even know what an internship was. Like, it was when I'd gone back to school, people were talking about all the things they did, and I was just looking like, internship, what is that? So I went home, just lounging, staying at home, waiting for the time to pass, and during that time, I got really restless because my experience at this college was very different from my secondary school experience. I'd learned to use my mind, to keep it active and not just waiting for the next holiday and all of that. And so when my mom now called me one afternoon, she used to make clothes that time. So she always had like beads and trimmings and all of those things around. And she was like, oh, okay, she's going to teach me how to make this necklace. So we sat on the floor there. We got some like faux pearls and all of that. She had fishing line and all of that. And then she showed me how to make this necklace. And it wasn't just necklace and tie it like that and glue it. It was necklace with a clasp. And in my mind, I was like, oh my God, this is like legit jewelry, like complete. Like if I wear this, who is going to know that the pearls are not real, And that was where everything in my mind and in my life just shifted. So at that point, it just became like a hobby, So I would make nice things, okay, stretch bracelets, all that and all that. So I made a bunch, took it back to school, gave it to my friends as gifts, Then later I progressed into selling. And then, so anytime I'll come home, my mom took me to Balogun one time, so we went and bought jewelry. So what I did was I sold some of them like that, and the other ones, I'll kind of like move them around, open here, open there, that kind of thing, purpose them, and then take it back to school and then sell it. So all this time, I was studying computer science in college at that time, and I really liked it. I still do, I was still doing my own beading thing on the side. Sometimes, I would like be up all night doing that. I went to school in Ghana. And I found this girl that took me to one local market one time. I begged her. So we went together, we bought beads. I bought some tools I still use today, And then I would come back and then make all sorts of things and all of that. And then try and sell them. And then this was happening alongside school, graduated school, had my degree and all of that. Later, I went for my master's in information, still in the IT thing, because that was still a part of me that I really liked. But I was still doing the whole beading thing on the side. And then at some point during my master's, it got to a point where I would have assignments. This master's degree, I won't do the assignment. I'll sit on the floor and be making necklace, And then I think it was at that point I realized that, okay, it seems that this thing is getting really serious. And it's getting to the point where, are you sure you don't want to take a second look at this thing? And then the hunger from just beads, I started using ribbons and beads. And then after a while, I really like rings. But now that I'm married, I feel weird wearing so many rings because the people start getting confused. So I was like, I want to know how to make rings. But then I couldn't make rings with just beads and just normal wire. I wanted that nice store-looking kind of thing. So that was how I started researching about making metal jewelry and then got into the whole thing. So I found some schools there. And then, so the next fear was that, okay, the first fear was that, how do I explain this to my parents? That I've paid school fees. I tell them,
masters.
I tell them that, okay, oh, I'm going to change direction.
To jewelry.
To jewelry. And it was like, okay. So as I was there thinking about it, getting scared and wondering how to explain to, my parents, one day my dad called me. And then we're just talking and all that and all that. And the next thing, he was like, Jabra, this jewelry thing, are you sure you don't want to go to school for this thing? In my mind, I was like, God. At first, it was like I didn't hear properly.